Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
She is coming to your rescue. If you're a parent, I'm going to say you need her. I was even going to say, yeah, you need her. Because as a parent, there's so much going on. It's not easy. You're trying to balance your life, your kid's life. You're trying to make your kids resilient and strong, but it's hard to do that when you got personality conflicts, you've got homework, activities, schedules, 2 or 3 jobs. It's a crazy situation. That's why Parenting 911 comes into play. And she's been working with parents for a long time, helping navigate all this stuff. Balance, we're going to start with that. Balancing your life and their life to have the best life. Frazelma Lynn joins us today. Welcome back. How are you today?
I am wonderful. How about yourself?
I am good. I'm good. And this is the balance thing, I think, is, in my opinion, the secret to life. There's got to be a balance. And there's lots of different things to balance, but once you have them all in sync, it's almost like a juggler, with the balls
Uh,
up in the air, whatever it might be. Um, you've got synchronicity, you've got everything you need, but it's not easy. It's certainly not, right?
Not easy. And you said it's almost like juggling. No, it is juggling. And so, honestly, as parents, we have to learn how to juggle well.
Mm.
And not miss a ball, not miss anything as we're moving. So that really calls for us to schedule, organize, plan things very well. Of course, life happens, and sometimes your plans have to be, thrown out of the window and you have to start over. But you need a plan. And when you're planning and organizing, you're including everybody in the family in your plan, not just your work schedule,
Mm.
not just their school schedule, but everybody's schedule together. And so I like to encourage parents always to have those family meetings, because in the family meeting, you have the family calendar, you
Hmm.
know what everybody needs, where everybody needs to go. And I want to say this because right now, because I don't want to forget, many times we overschedule, just like we overschedule ourselves, we
Hmm.
overschedule the children, and then we complain about not having time, but we are the schedule creators. And so we have to be careful about all that we add to the calendar at one time. One story with one of our children, she wanted to do, everything. Well, I told her, okay, you have to pick. Choose two things, not all eight things, because we couldn't get to eight things. And so she chose two, and then later on, later, maybe the second semester, she chose something else. Maybe the next year, she chose something else. But we have to understand that we can't do everything at one time.
Hmm. I like the meeting of getting everybody together. And this idea is so obvious, but I overlooked it. So I have an older daughter that lives by herself. I have one child that lives with me, another child that lives with her mother. And I met a guy recently, just a good guy. We hit it off, and his last name is Lantigua. And he started a group chat with all of his kids, and he calls it the Lantigua Legacy. And he every morning at 7 a.m. he messages everybody and how's your day going, starting your day. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to create a group chat. So simple, and just be mindful to check in.
So simple. I love that. The last time we spoke, we talked about simplicity. Yes, it
Hmm.
is so simple. And you just have to figure out a way to stay connected,
Yeah,
whether they're in the house or out of the house.
this is it.
Stay connected. And with all of the technology, it's much easier these days than ever.
Hmm. And the connected thing is important because you want your whole family connected. And it's easy as days go by, as weeks go by, for there be a disconnect. And you never want a day to go by where, two of your kids aren't communicating or at least saying, hey, what's up? Something simple. So the Harper Heritage group chat begins now.
Wonderful.
How about some other, it's because this is the most important thing I feel that we're going to talk about today. And we have other things to get to in parenting, the balance of the life. Any other tips how we can do that?
All right, so for let's take single parents. So for single parents, yes, you have, your own life and you want to get out there and have romance and all of that.
Mm,
Well, that's still a part of scheduling. That's
yeah,
still a part of scheduling.
for
All
sure.
right, so let's talk about our village. Sometimes we're living in a place we don't have relatives or what have you, but if there are daycares where your children attend, if there are places that have evening activities, use the resources around you that are safe, that you feel comfortable with, and schedule things that way. But don't ever put your children in a place where they don't feel safe. That's not good for them. They may be even 10, 11, 12 year olds don't really know how to express to their parents sometimes that they don't feel safe being with
Mm,
cousins, whomever, or
yeah. Yep.
an aunt. So you have to be really careful about the village. We tend to think that the village is anyone that we know. Well, no, the children have to feel safe, and those people are part of the village.
So important what you just said. And children know. They know when it's safe. They have intuition. They pick up
Yes.
on things. And I'll give you an example. I know a guy was telling me, fairly close friend, he got he got divorced, and right away his ex connected with a guy. And the guy started spending a lot of time at her place, pretty much living there. His daughter um, would tell him that, Dad, I don't know, the guy's creepy. I think he's creepy. That's the word she used, creepy. And, a lot of times kids maybe, over dramatize things. Well, he later learned by talking to someone who is connected to the new boyfriend that the guy has a history of alcohol issues. There's even police reports of him smashing the house that he shared with another person, breaking up the counter and just going crazy. And that's just, piece of it, kind of a deadbeat. I hate to say it, but that's the description. He, just barely doesn't even work. He's sponging off the woman. Um, but the child picked up on it,
Mhm.
just using
Mhm.
her radar, picked up on it, and he listened to it and took steps to protect her from that. The potential, and everybody changes and betters their life. We all go through challenges, but as a parent, I wouldn't want my kids subjected to that.
Exactly. And we have to realize that just because someone acts one way with us, that doesn't mean they act that same way with our children.
Sure.
So we have to make sure we listen to them, we pay attention to them, and you don't want them in an unsafe environment.
100%. And again, kids just know. I don't know. They have intuition and they pick up on it. So
Absolutely.
absolutely. But the
Mhm.
balance is a challenge because especially you're a single parent because you want to have somewhat of a life. Um,
Mhm.
you have work, you have your kid or kids. There's a lot. That it's a big challenge.
Okay, so I was reading a post from a parent, a single parent. They are divorced now, and the child is young, let's say 2 or 3. And she is struggling, very stressful for her because she's what she said was the child is so energetic, does everything, and doesn't listen to anything she says. All right, so that goes back to structure and proper discipline and her not knowing how to structure things with her child. So she depended on the ex to do all of that prior to the divorce, but now it's all on her. So we have to understand that regardless of what stage we're in, children need the structure. We need the structure as well. We need the discipline, the proper discipline. We're not talking about spanking or and punishment. We're talking about real discipline, walking them through things. And children, because right now what she's afraid of is that her child will get hurt because the child doesn't listen to her. So that should have all been a part of the child's life prior to now. So as we move through different parts and different seasons, there are still some structural things that we have to have in place with our children, regardless. Oh,
Mm.
and then when you're talking about married couples or together couples there in the house, when they want to do things, they still have to plan better also. They can plan different types of outings, when the child is at daycare or at school or what have you. It doesn't just have to be late Friday night when you need a babysitter, just be open to plan things differently.
Be intentional and take the time instead of just
Absolutely.
defaulting to the Friday night. There may be a time in your work schedules during the week where, oh, you're off then, I am too. You have 2 hours, let's go for a hike. Oh wow, okay, kids in school. Whatever. But
Exactly, exactly. So go back to your schedule and look for those openings. Look for those places where you can do some things to enjoy, and you know that your child will still be in a safe environment that you have approved.
other things to talk about, but I do want to throw this one to you. How do you get around feeling guilty? As a parent, you're taking time for yourself, and it's like, oh, well, I should be doing something with my child. Um, and I want to reframe that. I get to do something with my child. I don't want to make it sound like a negative, but you need some time yourself. How do you overcome that feeling of occasional guilt?
All right, so the guilt is really there to make you feel like you're not a good parent, you know? And so we have to look at the glass differently. That's perspective. If you know that your child is being well taken care of, if you know that your child is safe and has all of the qualities of life that they need to be productive at that age, think about it this way. If you don't take time for yourself, then you won't be able to provide for them all that they need. We
Mm,
all have to have some self-care time. We have to have it. If not, we try to, and I see parents doing this so much. We try to parent from an empty place. Well, that's not going to bring out the best of you. So you must take some time for you. Now, in that, we go right back to the plan, to the calendar. You make sure that you plan time to be with your child and
mm,
then plan time to be alone.
mm.
So it's all about the planning.
I spoke with somebody last night, somebody I work with. Yeah, we get together like every 5 months or whatever, had dinner, and he said there are some weekends, and he's divorced. His kids are older, but he still spends time with them, quite a bit when he can. And he said there are some weekends where Friday night at 6 p.m. until Sunday night at 10 p.m. He says I am completely alone. It's all about me. I don't do anything except for me. And he says, I love it. And
Exactly.
let me add, he's very successful, very grounded, and his success is even growing. He's a doctor,
Mhm,
growing his
mhm,
business. And he
mhm.
says, Monday morning comes around, I am on fire.
Yes, refreshed.
Totally.
Absolutely. And we have to realize when the children, even when they're in the house, so I tell parents, you have a bedtime set for your children, correct? Usually your bedtime is not before theirs. It would be more preferable if it's after theirs. And if that's possible, once they are, settled for bed, then you might have 30 minutes to an hour just to relax, just to think, just to unwind, just to have some self time for yourself.
Hmm. When it comes to your kids being independent, how do we attack that? And it looks differently, I'm sure, at different ages of your children.
Absolutely. It's going to look different, but you want your children to be empowered enough so that they already have enough confidence in themselves to try things and to work at things, to not need you right there with them at all times. Okay. When they're babies, we wean them off of the bottle, correct? So we have to wean them away from us being there, holding their hands to do everything. So that's a part of empowerment. When they're learning to walk, we keep stepping back a little bit further, another step. You can do it, you can do it. Another step. If we don't do that, they don't learn to walk independently. They want us to be right there with them. So as they are growing through different stages, we encourage them to do things, for themselves, sometimes by themselves. One parent that I was talking with, her son, I want to say is 15, and she wants to just still be there with him everywhere. And I said, "You do realize he's a teenager?" And she says, "I know, but I can't let go." And I said, "Oh, but you must. You must." And the more we allow them to be independent, then they learn how to do things better for themselves. They feel more empowered. We feel more empowered as well.
Hmm. How does that look? Let's say you have a 7-year-old and you want to teach that independence, and you have a, I don't know, 14-year-old and you want to teach that independence. Can you give us two examples how that looks?
All right. So, one thing that we don't do as much as we used to now because of technology or what have you, playing games, board games, games where you have to talk and go back and forth, that helps teach independence. Now, I know you're saying, but you're there together. Yes, but each child has to kind of think for themselves, decide what they need to do for themselves, instead of us saying, okay, now don't move right here. Okay, wait a minute now, think about. So we have to teach them that independence really is us making choices for ourselves. And then understanding that with those choices, whatever consequences come, they are coming. And we make better and wiser choices. So, based on what you're trying to teach that 7-year-old how to be independent about, all of that has to tie in. And what you're trying to teach the 14-year-old to be independent about. We can also walk them through different ways to be independent in that role,
Hmm.
and then allow them to practice in that role.
It's gotta, I feel we don't see it from their eyes, but allowing them to do that has to be so empowering.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is because remember, especially the 14-year-old, we're talking about middle school, getting ready to go into high school age. That's when they are trying to find themselves, find where they fit into this whole life scheme. And so we have to allow them to try some things and see how it feels. So maybe at
Hmm.
that age, I want to say one of our grandchildren went to their first school dance. And their friends were going, so they wanted to go too. Not that they cared anything about dancing, but hanging out with the friends. Okay.
Gotcha.
So they were allowed to go. And after the dance, they came home. You thought they would be excited. They're like, "Ugh, no, I still don't care anything about dancing, but my friends had a good time and I was there." So that's how they're going to find out more about themselves when we allow them to be independent.
What I'm getting from you, Frazelma, is it just takes a little extra time, because
Oh.
it's easy for us to, I'm in charge as a parent, I'll take care of that. You can't do this, you can't do that. To give them a little bit of, oh, you want to make breakfast? My little 7-year-old? Okay, yeah, just make sure you clean up and be careful. And you can't use the stove. You can use the toaster, whatever it might be. You have to think strategically, be mindful of all of that. You always have great advice. I love it. It's just, you're the
Well,
voice. You're the voice of parenting reason.
Oh, wow. Wow. You sound like the gentleman who said that I am the parent stress reliever. So I thought that was really cool.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And that's what we need. I don't need Advil. I need you. How do we engage with you if we, we're in a 911 parenting situation? How do we connect?
Go to www.parenting911.org. And that way you can set up a strategy session with me. My calendar is there available. You'll see other things that I have going on, different coaching sessions that are going. We have digital courses. We have a membership subscription. All of that will be available to you on the website.
Love it. Your tough love with love.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes. I like that.
Thank you, Frazelma. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. We'll talk soon.
Day.
You too. We're coming right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.